We're live. We are live. We made it. A little bit of a delay today, but we're here. We're here. Did forget to grab my 5-hour energy, so. Did I schedule this for 7 p.m.? People are probably. I thought I said 7 Eastern. I probably screwed that up in my head. Yeah, we're going up now. I'm gonna have to fire out a tweet. Apologize. I said we were going live at 8. I scheduled it for 8 Eastern, but I'm pretty sure I said 7 in the announcement. That's my bad. Might as well do this. We'll let people flock in while I get my ducks in a row here. The construction people literally left like 15 minutes ago, so I'm scrambling a little bit. Not gonna lie. But we'll get it figured out. Let me just tweet out a link to this bad boy. We're up to 100 people. People clearly got it figured out. Also, Loomer, thanks for the super chat. How long do I plan on keeping the mustache? I don't see the mustache going anywhere anytime soon. I think it's a good look. How do I get? I'm just trying to find like the shareable. Here. Let me pull it up in a different window here. Just trying to find the shareable stream link here so I can tweet it out. 120 and counting. We'll get us up to 500 viewers here for this bad boy. It'd be pretty sick. Had an error when I scheduled the stream on YouTube. We're live now. Not at 8 p.m. Eastern. Sweet. Okay, that's taken care of. Now I need to make sure I have A, an energy shot, so we have enough to get us through this, and B, I need to find a resource here that I can sort by team, which I think Spotrack's got us covered here. So I'm going to just start from the top. I can sort by Arizona and go down the list and react to all this. So I should be able to as well. Let's see what I can do here. If I go add display capture. And what if I just go like... See, that's the issue. Because I can't crop it, I don't think. See, this is what I should have figured out before we got started. I would love... Otherwise, I'll just do the little... do the thing where I'm in the little box in the corner, which would work too. But let me just see if I can crop it real quick. Yeah, I don't think I can. That's all right. We'll just bounce back between this and not that. Well, that's fine. We just need to change to that. We'll just bounce back between these two bad boys and we'll be just fine. So we got that in order. How's everybody doing? How is everybody doing tonight? We got a super chat from Alex. Thank you, Alex. The stream's having some issues here, so let's make sure that's good to go before I answer Alex's questions. Good time to go grab my energy shot. I don't know why it does this. Every time I launch the stream, it dies and then it comes back. I don't know. We're climbing back up to 100. Let's see if I refresh how we're looking here. It's definitely a YouTube problem because nothing on my end happens, but it definitely, I mean, the viewers just dropped from like 130 to like 20 real quick. So, whoops. You don't want to see that. A look into the TFG dashboard. All right, we'll give it one more second here to pound this lovely Kirkland energy shot. Someone also said if it's OBS, I can hold Alt and drag. Let's give that a try. So if I go video capture device. If I add this, if I hold Alt, oh, dude, look at you. Who suggested that in the chat? Shout out to Arrow. Let's go. So if I go like this, clutch, we can legit just get. Oh man, that's a game changer right there. Look at that. Woohoo! I think what I'll do here is drag me over. Thank you guys for bearing with me while I figure my life out. Look at us moving up in the world. We'll get the SeatGeek promo. Let's drop the SeatGeek promo into the bottom right corner. This is what you guys came for, right? Graphic editing. You gotta think. We got some super chats already from Alex. When I ask you to be the Pats GM, can you also play corner, edge, or guard? Dude, what is wrong with Bill Belichick, man? What happened? Just throwing freaking softballs to the Bucs, giving them one of the best guards in the NFL. Like, come on, man. Just serving up Shaq Mason on a silver platter. But thank you for the super chat, Alex. Appreciate it. Getting us off on the right note here. We also got one from Tyler. Thank you for the super chat, Tyler. I will be immediately answering any super chat questions throughout the stream. So appreciate you guys in advance. But do you understand how JC is only an $8 million cap hit for 1 year, for year one for LA? Well, let's check that out real quick. Let's pull her up. I love this setup, man. This is going to be a sick stream. So let's go. Let's check it out. Let's see if they have the contract details. I would guess it's front loaded. Yep. So his base salary in the first year is only $3 million. This equally spread out his signing bonus. So that's how you get it. He's only paid $8 million in the first year. What a great contract. Takes him until he's 31 years old. What a freaking steal for the Chargers. But we are starting with the Cardinals. We also just got a super chat from Julian. Tell us the story of how I met my wife. Sure. Basically, it's the classic I got lucky friend of a friend scenario. So, ironically, I'm wearing the sweatshirt that he made us for his for his bachelor party, but Ramsey, who is one of the two guys that does he's Comp Keyz. You guys know all the music for my channel. At least most of it is Comp Keyz. That's a lot of the stuff that's playing in this mix right here, which go check out Comp Keyz, guys. That's Comp space Keyz with a Z on Instagram, Spotify. Gotta shout out my boys. But I have him to thank because Ramsey went to DePaul for film school. He is also a big reason my channel exists because I didn't know how to do any of this stuff without him. So Ramsey's a real one. So go check out his music. But like seriously, my channel exists because of Ramsey. We're getting all sentimental, and he's not even watching this. So screw you, Ramsey. But my channel exists because of him, and I met my wife because of him. So pretty nice. But his college roommate at DePaul, Derek, was high school friends with Anna. So Derek was back up in Minneapolis visiting us. Anna actually lived here because of her job. And Anna came out to hang out with us, met Anna, and the rest is history. I asked her out at the end of the night. I was bold, man. I put my chips on the table. The way I asked her out, we were hitting it off all night. I had just a couple, and I said, I like you, and I think you might like me. Let me buy you a drink later this week. Real smooth. It worked. So that's how I met my wife. Thank you, Julian, for the fun super chat to lead us into what's going to be a really fun video here. Stream, podcast, video, hangout session, whatever you want to call it. We are being ambitious nonetheless. We are going to try and react to every single free agent move so far, and I will react to anything that happens live. I don't know how much is going to happen at 6 o'clock here, so let's get started. We're going to go alphabetically by, I guess, whatever order Spotrac here has for us. So, starting with Arizona, and let's just get into it. Here we go. So, we're kind of starting, we want to look at like March 14th, really. You know, a lot of this stuff we've already kind of talked about, so we're just kind of looking at the top of the list here. But Colt McCoy, I guess we can talk about Zach Ertz for a second, because that happened just before free agency started. I'm a little worried about Zach Ertz. He's 32. He was already regressing in Philadelphia. They're paying him $10 million a year. Now, they can get out of it after 2023, so that's really not that bad. I don't think it's a bad contract. I don't know if it's a great contract. I think it was important that he stayed because he had a good chemistry with Kyler, but it is going to, that's a decent contract. It's going to make things even harder on them. I think they should be getting younger, not older. So I don't hate the contract, but I think it's a little bit risky. That's all I'll say. Colt McCoy's a good backup. Easy decision there, especially with Kyler, kind of his injury. You know, he's a guy that'll get injured a little bit. So having a good backup is smart. Looks like they brought Michael Dogby back. Depth piece. Denik Gardeck, really good special teamer. He's a guy that, like, he can be your third kind of rotational edge guy. You can scheme him up. Good athlete. Now, Chandler Jones probably gone. They don't have another edge on the roster right now. You don't want him to be a full-time starter, but for a really good special teamer and a guy that can be a rotational player for you, I think that's a good move. James Conner at 3 years, $21 million. We were critical of this on the stream yesterday. You know, just, I don't think James Conner's that special of a player. Really special human. I love James Conner, and I'm really happy for him. This is not cleaning my glasses at all. This towel is disgusting. Yikes. I need the glasses, though. I do, because we're reading the screen, so let me try this rag. Yeah, that's not a move I would have made. I don't think James Conner does anything for you that you can't find in, a third or fourth round running back or off the block. I think they kind of rushed to the table to pay him quickly. I don't know how big of a market there would have been for James Conner. The Cardinals aren't swimming in cap space. And I don't know. I like James Conner, but I would have probably, after signing Zach Ertz, I probably would not have made that move. And it looks like they moved around DeAndre Hopkins' contract a little bit to create some cap space. So pretty basic for the Cardinals, just keeping some of the players that they felt were integral for them. They like I said, they don't have a ton of cap space, but I think they really would benefit from going after another corner. I don't know if that's someone as good as like Stephon Gilmore, or maybe, you go down. I should pull up my free agent list. Hang on. Let me just grab that real quick, just so I can shoot out some potential names for these guys. All right. Yeah, maybe down the list a little bit more guys like Isaiah Oliver, Terrence Mitchell, Anthony Averett, something like that. Someone that can start for them. I think that cornerback position's in a pretty bad way right now. So I think that could be a smart way to spend. And then, of course, edge. They need to get someone on the edge as well. So is that a Mario Addison, a veteran like Justin Houston, potentially Jerry Hughes, Jadeveon Clowney? I don't think they're going to spend a ton of money, but I think edge and corner at this point, using what money they have left, is probably the route they should go there. Okay, on to Atlanta. And I know they're in the Deshaun Watson conversations now. Deshaun Watson gets to pick where he wants to go. Is it going to be Atlanta? I don't know, but let's just forget about that for a second. They've been not that busy, I should say. They didn't re-sign Russell Gage, which was fascinating to me. Like, their wide receiver situation is so bad. I should pull up their depth chart too. But their wide receiver situation, I'm sorry, this is going to look a little small on your end, but like, there. That's about as good as I can do. Like, without Russell Gage, you have Olamide Zaccheaus, who's a really short receiver. You have Frank Darby, who I had as an undraftable player they took in the 6th round last year. Like, God, their wide receiver situation is a disaster, and there's not a lot of guys like on the market. Yes, you have Kyle Pitts, but Hayden Hurst is also a free agent. So, like, God, they have so much work to do. I did like that they extended Jake Matthews. I've always liked Jake Matthews. He's a good starting caliber left tackle. He's borderline very good, but Falcons fans don't really like Jake Matthews, or at least a lot of them don't for some reason. He's just super reliable. He's a good athlete for that zone block system. So to lose him would have been, not that he was an impending free agent, but to keep him around, I think was really smart. I'm glad that they acknowledge he's a valuable piece, because I wasn't sure how the Falcons stood on Jake Matthews. Falcons fans will be very happy that Young Hoku is back. I had a tweet joking about how some Falcons fans was like, if we don't keep Young Hoku, I'm out. I'm done with the Falcons. And I said, the Falcons fans are in a bad way if your loyalty to the team lives or dies based on what happens to your kicker. But he is a damn good kicker. That's pretty good money for a kicker, but he is worth it. And then they released Tyler Davidson, so getting even worse up front. This defensive roster is a disaster. They could pretty much spend anywhere, and I wouldn't blame them. They also need wide receiver help. They also haven't done anything with Cordero Patterson. So they haven't done anything with Hayden Hurst. They've been really quiet. I think whether or not they can get Deshaun Watson's a big part of what they're going to do moving forward. But yeah, the Falcons are a difficult team to talk about, and they're in a really, really tough spot. And I will say, I do agree that they shouldn't be just pouring money into free agency. I do think there needs to be some conservation of resources here for future cap considerations. So I don't think they're doing anything right or wrong at this point. It's just kind of stuck in neutral, as is the rest of this team. We also got another super chat here from Alex. Now I have to ask, how did you propose to your wife? On a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous was I? I had a good proposal. She wanted a surprise. That was her number one rule. Was she didn't want to know it was coming, and she definitely did not. So she loves fireworks, so I wanted fireworks to be involved. I wasn't quite ready when it was 4th of July. But my parents live on a small little lake in Minnesota, one of the 10,000. And I wanted to do it out on the lake in some way. And I learned that my neighbor has like 2 crates of like imported fireworks from Wisconsin. And he sets off a show on the 4th of July. And that got me thinking. I was like, all right, when I'm ready, I'm going to have him set off some fireworks, and I'm going to pop the question down by the lake. And originally the plan was I had a little party at my parents' place, and the plan was to get everybody down towards the lake. I was going to send one of my buddies over to my neighbor's house, and he was going to set off a few. Actually, I was going to find a way to get Anna out on the dock. And then once I was out there, once I started to ask her, have him send off fireworks, like after she said yes. Well, my neighbor had a few and saw us walk down, and after about 2 minutes of us walking down, I was still working on getting Anna out on the dock, and he just started setting off the fireworks, which actually worked better because that was an excuse to get Anna to go out on the dock with me, because it was like, hey, fireworks, you love fireworks. Let's go out on the dock and watch them. And they were already going off, so she's in a good mood. And then as we're walking out there, she like noticed like I had the thing in my pocket. She's like, you don't have a ring in your pocket, do you? And she like stops walking, and she's like, you do not have a ring in your pocket. And I was like, I was starting to get a little nervous at this point. I'm pretty sure I just straight up said like, would you shut the fuck up and get to the end of the dock? So she knows what's going on. And then I blacked out at that point. I don't remember what I said. But she said yes. Everyone was celebrating for us when we came back in. It was perfect, man. So that's how I proposed. Thank you for another distraction before we talk about the Baltimore Ravens here. So the Ravens had been quiet until today, where they had one of my favorite signings of free agency, and that was Marcus Williams. We were all kind of waiting to see where Marcus Williams was going to drop. You know, he's that'll probably be the biggest safety contract that gets handed out here, I would think. Yeah, depending. I don't think Tyrann Mathieu, definitely total money, won't get more than that. So that's the biggest safety contract that'll come off the board, and potentially the best overall safety going to Baltimore. And that's a great fit. I mean, you look at their safety chart, safety depth chart, that is. If we could pull this up here. Baltimore, right at the top there. Like, yeah, you got... Oh, I forgot Deshaun Elliott's a free agent. So you have Chuck Clark, who's kind of your strong safety. He'll play too high. Cover 2, cover 4, he'll go too high. But they didn't have that rangy free safety here to truly run cover 3 and frankly cover 1, which they always have loved cover 1 in Baltimore. It allows them to send an extra blitzer, play man coverage. You got Peters, you got Marlon Humphrey. You want to run man coverage here. But without that rangy playmaking free safety that they once had in Earl Thomas, and Ed Reed even before then, it's a little bit less ideal. So you have that in Marcus Williams now, who can just be that over-the-top, single high free safety and really fills out that defense super well. They were probably going to have to pay Deshaun Elliott anyway if they couldn't get Marcus Williams, but they upgraded. So just a brilliant move. That's going to go down as one of my favorite free agent signings. And they really haven't done anything else here. This is going back to March 9th. I mean, this is literally all they've done is sign Marcus Williams. And, I feel like the Ravens are really good at this. When they strike in free agency, it makes sense. They're not overspending. They're filling a really big need. It was the same thing last year when they got Zeitler. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. That's going to be one of my favorite free agent signings. So that's really all we have on Baltimore. And then we've got Buffalo, who also has been pretty quiet. They were doing a lot of stuff with their own players within the last couple of days. So they re-signed Isaiah McKenzie. We talked about that in my offseason blueprint series. We talked about kind of wanting to retain with Emmanuel Sanders out the door. It looks like Cole Beasley is going to be out the door. They really got creative with Isaiah McKenzie. And yes, Brian Dable's gone, but he was a good player. I mean, he reminds me a lot, actually, of oh my God, I just saw Tim Settle only got $9 million over 2 years. What the hell? We'll talk about that in a second. But there's a player in this draft a lot of people are excited about, Calvin Austin out of Memphis. And initially my comparison was Isaiah McKenzie, just that, chess piece for your offense. Not a true deep threat, but when he lines up in the slot, he can run those deep crossers. He can stem vertically, and Josh Allen is such a good deep ball thrower that when you have a guy that can separate, he's just a good little weapon for them to have. Literally a little weapon. And at $2 million a year, like, it's just a great little piece for them to have. And it makes it so they don't have to draft receiver. Like, they might still do it, but they definitely don't have to. Darrell Williams was fascinating. He's been fascinating ever since he was in Carolina. So he was like a Pro Bowl tackle for Carolina. Then they moved him to guard. He didn't play well. Then and I don't know if I'm getting the timeline fully straight here, but then he hits free agency. He comes back to Carolina, like on a 1-year, like, veteran minimum contract, plays at tackle again, plays really well. Then Carolina lets him go again. Buffalo pays him. And then a year after he just got an extension in Buffalo, they draft Spencer Brown in the 3rd round to supposedly replace him, kick Darrell Williams into guard, where he has not been as good at guard in his career as he's been at right tackle, and then release him. It's all just been weird with Darrell Williams. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if coaches just can't get along with this guy. I don't know if people are worried about injuries or bad scheme fit. Whatever it is, he just is having a hard time sticking. But it's interesting. I trust the Bills that this is the right thing for their offensive line. They've been really shuffling these pieces around until it really sticks. They've shuffled around this offensive line, by choice, I feel like, more than anybody out there. A lot of teams are like, let's just get continuity, let's stay healthy, and these guys will develop together. And the Bills are like, if you don't impress us right away, they're very quick to move on from you. They have a very unique philosophy with this offensive line. No different or no less obvious here than bringing in Roger Saffold on a 1-year deal. So I do trust Buffalo that this is what's right for them. I like Spencer Brown as a prospect. So if you feel really good about Spencer Brown's development in year 2, that he's going to take that right tackle job and you need a guard, so you're going to shift some money around here by releasing Darrell Williams and bringing in Roger Saffold, I can't really argue with that. I just find it very fascinating that he's played well at tackle, but he's never made the money that he's frankly deserved based on how well he's played at that spot. And I think a team like New England, who's desperate for offensive line all of a sudden, could really benefit from picking up a Darrell Williams, or a team like Kansas City could benefit from this. He's not a great athlete. He's not a great move blocker, so you don't want him in those more Shanahan-intensive offenses where you're really asking these guys to block on the move. But there's a lot of teams that still run more of your classic spread coast offenses that are going to have these guys a little more stationary. So Darrell Williams, I think, should be viewed as a right tackle for somebody, even though the Bills kind of decided he wasn't their guy anymore. But that was interesting. We got a couple super chats to interrupt us here. Alex Tracy says there's also reports that the Ravens are interested in Eddie Goldman. Makes a ton of sense. That would be another move from Baltimore where they're probably sneaking in there under market value. All of the other teams that really needed run defenders kind of rushed to the table to pay those guys. Eddie Goldman on a second team. I can just picture it already. Very similar to them getting Zeitler last year, where he probably signs a 1-year, $7 million contract in Baltimore, plays really well, and then either goes elsewhere and gets a big contract and the Ravens end up with a good comp pick like they always pull off, or he even gets an extension and becomes like a Brandon Williams type of player for them. So that would be a great signing. I would not be surprised at all if they did that. And then Flambeau also asked, do you think the Pack draft a designated return man? Definitely wouldn't surprise me. Definitely wouldn't surprise me because of the added emphasis on special teams with Rich Bisaccia there. And they don't really have, I think KJ Hill could be that guy, but unfortunately coming off the injury. But back to the Bills here. They re-signed Mitch Morse. Don't want to lose your starting center when he's a good player. Good money for him, so that was pretty easy. We kind of talked about bringing in Saffold. He'll start for a year. He's declining, but getting him just for one more year, I think that's smart process by the Bills. Kind of plugs in at guard. No questions asked there. They tendered Ryan Bates, who's played some games for them. And then I like these moves, man. I didn't know they got Daquan Jones, but I like these moves. That's very self-aware of the Bills there. So instead of paying Harrison Phillips, who went to the Vikings, who I thought they should have re-signed, but if you're not going to re-sign Harrison Phillips, sign in my dude, Tim Settle. It is Tim Settle season in Buffalo. I should just get a Bills Tim Settle jersey if he gets a starting job. I've been screaming for 2 years someone should go get Tim Settle from Washington because he's been buried on that depth chart, man. But I'm a big Tim Settle fan. He's got light feet, but a thick upper half. He reminds me a lot. I just comped Neil Farrell Jr. out of LSU. I should be going the other way on this. But anyway, he is strong up top, but light below. So he has that quickness to get off blocks and kind of elude blockers in a lot of ways, but he's strong as well. He's not going to get pushed around. So I think Tim Settle is a better player than Daquan Jones, but Daquan Jones is a very good nose tackle as well. So you get some meat and some physicality inside there next to Ed Oliver, so he doesn't have to play any, tough run defense between the guards. You can relieve Ed Oliver of those duties because that's not his game. So really love Tim Settle and Daquan Jones there. And then hey, J.D. McKissick signs here as well. I like that move too. Third down receiving back. That's exactly what they needed at the running back position. You've got some kind of road graders up front with Singletary and Moss, but none of those guys have been that screen game aficionado or a guy that you can actually put out as a wide receiver. I think J.D. McKissick even has wide receiver experience going back to his college days. So just a player that can be another chess piece for this offense, and that's another really smart signing. So all these moves make sense. They're being very calculated here with the Bills, and smart front office continues to make smart moves. Carolina. Oh, Panthers. All right. I don't hate what the Panthers have done. I don't hate what the Panthers have done in the last 2 days. This right here made me want to throw up. Ian Thomas for $17 million. I don't get it. He is a replacement level tight end. I've been critical of a lot of the stuff this team has done over the last year, but I will say, and releasing Morgan Fox, a failed free agent signing, never liked that from the get-go. AJ Bouye, he's kind of washed up at this point. Those make sense, but look, these are good moves. All of these are good moves. Other than Donta Foreman, I don't know what that's all about. But Austin Corbett, 3 years, $26 million. No-brainer, right? This offensive line's a disaster. They need every position other than right tackle. So Austin Corbett plugs right in there. Anytime a team signs a good offensive lineman and you need it, I'm going to be in favor of it. Especially when he's a good one that's not making like $1 million. Well, he is making $1 million, but you get the point. That's not overpaid. So that's a good start for the offensive line. If you can get Charles Cross at 6 and maybe draft another guy here, all of a sudden that offensive line can come together a little bit. So that's a good start for the offensive line. Xavier Woods makes a ton of sense too. He instantly becomes their best safety, their best cover safety. You've got obviously Jeremy Chin, but they don't have another guy next to him that can play more free safety and provide that coverage flexibility. So that's an instant upgrade. Moving on from Justin Burris. Upgrading there. I thought Woods had a good year for the Vikings. So those are good signings. They're not overpaying those guys. And a 2-year extension for Marquise Hayes. Looks like that just came in recently. And I talked about him being a good rotational player. I think Marquise Haynes was for them this year what they thought Morgan Fox was going to be, is that third pass rusher that can do some fun stuff. And with Reddick leaving, and I agree with letting Reddick leave instead of paying him $15 million. I think you have Burns there. You have Haynes, who had a good year. You have Yetur Gross-Matos, who you've got to find out if he can play. He just hasn't gotten a lot of playing time. You need to trust those guys that they can replace Hassan Reddick, and I think that's smart. They're going to get probably a decent comp pick unless these guys cancel it out, but yeah, it's a good wave of free agency for the Panthers. Much better than they did last year, where they just rushed to the table to pay like Pat Elflein and some other garbage. So good moves for the Panthers. And then we've got some more super chats here. So Flambeau again. Also, F Balky for destroying the receiver market. Devontae is going to get the Rodgers rate at this point. Yeah, that is pretty crazy. I mean, Devontae has all the leverage for Green Bay, against Green Bay. It's crazy that, let's see if I can find it here. If you pull up the receiver market, I wonder if we can figure that out. So if we go to wide receiver, if you go to base salary, or total cash, average. So this is what you want to look at, is the average. So the top 2 guys are players that are low cap hits for their team because they were acquired via a trade, right? So DeAndre Hopkins, when he went to Arizona, was only getting like 11 a year of new money from the Cardinals. So the Cardinals gave him an extension, and it basically stacked on top of the dead money, I think is how this works. The dead money that's like that Houston's like accountable for. So this is a truly unique contract, and it's way above. It's $5 million above anybody else. Again, Julio was similar in that way. And then you have, these are the new contracts. $20 million is the top of the market. So a real re-signing situation, the money should be like 21, 22 million. But Adams and his agent are saying, no, look what Hopkins makes. We need to make more than that. And the Packers are saying, no, you don't understand. That's not the real receiver market. So they're in a standstill right now. I think they settle somewhere in the middle there at about 23 and a half. is what I guess happens. But again, Devontae has all the leverage in the world, and if he gets $28 million, I'm not going to be that surprised. But man, that really makes things tough on the Packers, man, to really win in the next 2 years. Really is what they have to do. And then we got a couple more super chats here. Another personal question from Tommy. I love the personal questions, keeping a nice balance here. How did Teddy do during the relocation, or does he love his new home? P.S. Can you bring him in before looking at the Pats? I really need him to cheer me up. Sure, he's right next to me. He's bundled up. I will show him before we get to the Patriots. But he has an illogical fear of cardboard boxes, so he hates moving day. But now that we're settled, he loves it. He loves all of the space. He has a backyard. And now that the snow is hopefully melting here, even though we got a fresh sheet of snow a couple of days ago, he's going to be able to run around and enjoy the yard. So he's very, very happy. But it was, a lot of loud noises tearing up the cupboards, and we've been doing a lot of work on the kitchen. So, he doesn't like loud noises, and he doesn't like cardboard boxes for some reason. But now that all that's kind of behind us, he's a happy doggo. All right, Chicago. Now, Chicago, to me, this has not been a ringing endorsement of Ryan Poles, in my opinion. I look at this list of moves for them, and I'm not happy if I'm a Bears fan. Now, I get the direction that they want to go. Believe me, I do. They're taking an honest look at this team, and they're saying this is a new regime. We're not going to be great this year. Let's clear up cap space. Let's get younger. Let's let Eberflus get the pieces he wants to build this defense. I totally understand that side of things, and I'm not even so much critical of that. Like, to me, this is not enough to get for Khalil Mack, the 48th pick. Like, Khalil Mack, I do believe, is going to get healthy and get back to being one of the 10 best players in the NFL. And I know he's on the other side of 30, but to get a second round pick for him, I just think he's such a great force multiplier for your defense. I don't think the Bears have to suck like over the next 2 years. And I think Khalil Mack he increases the floor, but he increases the ceiling of that defense so much. And Eberflus has never had a pass rusher like Khalil Mack. So what does he know about what that could do for his defense? So I just thought that trade was pretty dumb from their perspective. Like, you've got to get a really good player at 48. And I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. If they hit this year's Asante Samuel Jr. or this year's, Creed Humphrey or Antoine Winfield Jr., like, there's a chance if they get a young superstar, they can pay that back. But if they just draft an average starter, which is typically what you're getting in the second round, I can't get behind that move. Releasing Tariq Cohen, I hope he can get healthy. I understand that. Now, releasing Eddie Goldman, he was expensive, but he wasn't that expensive. He's making like $10 million a year. That's about the price of these top run defenders. You hear reports that a smart team like the Ravens is interested in Eddie Goldman. There's a role for him in this defense. The Colts paid Grover Stewart about $10 million a year. With Matt Eberflus, obviously the defensive coordinator coming over from the Colts. There's a role for him in this defense. He's only, 27? Probably. He's 28. Like, again, you're tearing up this defensive line, and then you're paying Larry Ogunjobi $40 million. Like, I talked about this yesterday. and was shouting out Robert Mays. How many Robert Mays shout outs do I have when I'm recording? But you don't want to be the team that pays the guy who the year before was signed as a bargain bucket free agent. And that was Larry Ogunjobi, coming off a down year in Cleveland, signs a 1-year deal for $6 million to go. I'm going to move this over here. But he got a bargain bucket deal to go to the Bengals. He had a solid year. He had a solid year, but nothing like amazing. He's a good pass rusher for third downs. He was a nice third piece because they had DJ Reader, they had BJ Hill, they had really good early down run defenders where Larry Ogunjobi really struggles. And frankly, it's not a coincidence that the Bengals run defense got better in the playoffs when Ogunjobi got hurt. And never cheer for injuries, but I think that helped the Bengals on their Super Bowl run. And that's not a ringing endorsement of someone that you just paid $40 million. Now, let's look at the structure here. It's not out, but 26 guaranteed. Like, they're not going to be able to get out of that after the first year. So that just doesn't make sense. Like, you don't want to be the team that pays the bounce back candidate. I would rather have just kept Eddie Goldman, play nose tackle for you. Another player that hasn't been signed yet is probably a better player than Larry Ogunjobi, and that's a guy that you are familiar with in, let's see if Our Lads lists some. I don't know if he's for sure better than Ogunjobi, but he's certainly cheaper. Bilal Nichols, it's a good player. I like Nichols and Goldman together better than just Ogunjobi with Kairos Tonga and whatever else you want to put in there. So I don't agree with that move. Perhaps Poles and Eberflus are still trying to figure each other out a little bit. But other than that, I'm also disappointed that they haven't done anything for Fields. Most of the receivers are off the board. Maybe they're in the play for Teron Armstead. You know, if that happens and clearing up this cap space allowed you to make that move, I think you can understand it a little bit more. That's about the only free agent that would make up for all of that. We'll see if they get in the mix there, but they definitely need to give more to Fields. They were rumored to be in the running for Christian Kirk. They obviously got outpriced there. But they let James Daniels go. That one is head scratching to me. I thought James Daniels was a no-brainer to keep. He's their second best offensive lineman and was going to be a great scheme fit as you're transitioning to this move block Shanahan offense. They just let him out the door. So I'd be pretty ticked off if I was a Bears fan. I don't think they're having a great offseason. I think they're kind of resetting here, and I don't entirely disagree with it, but I think they're also screwing Justin Fields over. So they gotta do something here, man. And you got to keep in mind they don't have a first round pick, so free agency is very important to them. They do have 2 seconds now, but yeah. We just got another super chat from Eric Grau. Is Carolina still your number 1 spot for Watson, or do you think he goes to New Orleans or Cleveland now that the moves made by those teams recently? I mean, if it's truly his choice, I would imagine he would prefer to go to Cleveland or New Orleans, which it sounds like it is truly his choice, which is just blows my mind, but I've talked enough about that. You know, I think Cleveland and New Orleans make a lot of sense for him, but I'm just kind of tired of the Deshaun Watson stuff. I just want to know where he's going and we can move forward. I hate this idea that he's holding Houston hostage, basically, and perhaps they're not going to get as much as he's worth because of that, which just kind of makes the whole situation even more gross. But we are on to the Cincinnati Bengals, who have basically been taking care of their own and fixing the offensive line. So not a whole lot to talk about with them, honestly. Jesse Bates, they got to work out a deal. I'd be surprised, honestly, if Jesse Bates played on that franchise tag of $13 million. Similar to Devontae Adams, like, if you're a top 3 player at your position and you get franchise tagged, you're actually going to be legit pissed. As opposed to being like a Cam Robinson or a Mike Gesicki or, you know, most of the guys that get franchise tagged, it's like you're actually going to get paid more next year on the tag. Jesse Bates is not getting paid more on the tag. You know, he's worth about $19 million probably. So they got to figure that out. It's definitely disappointing that they haven't yet, but I think they will. They re-signed BJ Hill. Good price for him. I like that re-signing. And then the offensive line moves. I think Alex Kappa's the big one. 4 years, $35 million. So you're looking at about $9 million for... no, my math's off there. 35 divided by 4 puts it at 8.5, something like that. But I don't know. Why is this math so hard for me? Anyway, you knew you had to upgrade the offensive line here. So I think Kappa makes a ton of sense. Ted Karras, I think, is a push with your other guard, who they let walk in Quentin Spain. But Karras probably plays left guard. You also could potentially play Karras at center and move Trey Hopkins to guard. But that's kind of a push, and that's about what I would have paid what I would have paid Quentin Spain. So I like both those moves. They need to figure out right tackle still. So maybe they bring a Reef back, or they could potentially be planning on moving Jackson Carman to right tackle, which is something to keep an eye on. They drafted him in the 2nd round. He played left tackle at Clemson. I think he can handle it. So keep an eye on that. If, you know, it's risky to count on Carman. I think it could work out, but that is risky to count on him at right tackle. So I think pairing that with getting like another guy, maybe a Billy Turner or a Riley Reef back would be smart. But yeah, Bengals kind of status quo. I would keep an eye on them to maybe get active in the cornerback market, would be the only other thing I would say here. Maybe a Darius Williams or a Dante Jackson or something like that. They had a lot of success in free agency last year, getting Chidobe Awuzie and Mike Hilton. So filling that out could be nice. Cleveland Browns, baby. Amari Cooper kind of stole the show over the weekend. I love the move. I can't believe people were even critical of this. I think there's just so much negative energy surrounding Baker Mayfield right now that anything they do, it's like the Browns can't do anything right. Also, Split Up Gang, thank you for the super chat. But yeah, it feels like the Browns can't do anything right, and people are completely ignoring the fact that their entire offense was decimated by injuries last year. This team had a lot of expectations last year. Both their tackles went down. Their running backs dealt with injuries, which in Cleveland actually matters because it's the best running back duo in the NFL, and they run the ball a ton. Their wide receiver situation was a train wreck. I really like the Browns' outlook next year. And I don't think they trade for Watson. I think they're just doing their due diligence there to see if they could get him for cheap. I think they're just fine going back with Baker for one more year. And Amari Cooper versus Jarvis Landry, it's basically the trade-off here that scheme fit is so important, guys. So I'll do the Shanahan offense spiel. You know, I know I say it a lot, and people are probably like, tired of me always bringing up the Shanahan offense, but when 16 teams in the league run this scheme, it's important that you understand how these schemes work. So if you're new here, you might want to get caught up. I'll do it quickly, but just specifically from the wide receiver spot here, Browns are going to be running a lot of 12 personnel because they like heavy packages, play action, and they want these receivers to be able to run vertically and over the middle of the field to create chunk plays off of play action. And in Jarvis Landry's case, Jarvis Landry is a true slot and one of the slowest starting receivers in the NFL. So Not only is he uncomfortable as a perimeter receiver in 12 personnel, where you only have 2 wide receivers on the field, Jarvis is more comfortable bunched up in the slot, where he doesn't face press coverage, where he's not asked to run down the field, where he can be a bubble screen threat and a short route threat. That's really not something easy for Cleveland to manufacture for him. So the second Stefanski got there, you notice how Jarvis Landry's production fell off a cliff? That's not a coincidence. He is almost a liability for them because of how much he makes. This feeling that they have to get him the ball, but he just is not a fit for what they want to do offensively. Amari Cooper couldn't be any more of the opposite. Amari Cooper is going to be so good in this scheme. So good. As far as beating press and coming, screaming open on these intermediate routes. Really good guy after the catch. I'm really excited for Amari Cooper here. Now, him and Baker got to get to work. They got to have a better chemistry than him and Odell had and all that stuff. But Jarvis Landry made a ton of sense to move on from him. They signed Taven Bryan. Okay. It's not the type of defensive tackle I really want to see them go get, but he's an interesting kind of third down piece. I'm sure it wasn't anything expensive, so we'll see as a retread project here if he can do anything. They need another bigger bodied guy on the inside there, so maybe they would be a fit there for our buddy in Chicago that we were just talking about as a defensive tackle. But then they make this trade. Mac Wilson for Chase Winovich. It makes a ton of sense. I think this is kind of a win-win for both parties. New England's linebacker room was a train wreck. Mac Wilson has never really been unlocked in Cleveland, though he's shown these flashes. And Mac Wilson wasn't going to play here. But as for Cleveland, they have gaping holes on the edge. They currently, Jadeveon Clowney and Takk McKinley are impending free agents for them. So they need a number 2 and a number 3. Chase Winovich, to me, is kind of on the fringe there. Just was kind of flushed out of New England there, schematically. But as a more traditional defensive end, I think he'll work well here. I think they're still going to be in the market for an edge guy, but if they have to start Winovich, I think they'll be just fine with, Porter Gustin could be the early down guy there. He's not a bad run defender. Yeah, Porter Gustin can play a little bit. Taven Bryan could even play some early down edge for them in this system. So they're no longer desperate at edge. That's a good trade. Really makes a lot of sense for both parties. This one's interesting. Browns releasing J.C. Treader. Now, they did draft Nick Harris in the 5th round in 2020. He's a guy to keep an eye on. I think with these bodies around him, Nick Harris can be a hell of a player. The other thing worth noting is not just do I believe in Nick Harris, who after 2 years of development could very much fill in and surprise some people. He could very well be a breakout candidate. But this draft is particularly deep in move blocking centers. To pair off of the Shanahan scheme rant and kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. As far as your blocking schemes go, you're going to be talking about a lot of moving schemes with your blocking. So outside zone, moving pockets with your play action. And what that means is you have to get on the move, reach block, reset, and establish a new pocket. You have to be a really athletic offensive lineman to play in a Shanahan-style offense. We're seeing a rising trend in athleticism at this position. So Nick Harris is and always was a scheme fit in that. So we haven't seen a lot of him, but I do believe in him with all of these pieces around him. I think Cleveland has probably seen enough to believe in him taking that step. But this draft class has a lot of guys that you're going to keep an eye on day 2, probably for the Browns. Or even Tyler Linderbaum in the 1st round could be for there, or Zion Johnson. But even if you go into the 2nd round, you go Alec Lindstrom out of Boston College. You can go a hot name right now. If I pull up my my draft board real quick. Might as well plug. You guys can get access to the TFG draft board on patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy, but I'm going to look at it off the screen here. Dylan Parham out of Memphis, really good athlete. A hot rising name, though, Cameron Jurgens out of Nebraska. Daniel Jeremiah kind of quietly dropped a bomb on one of their more recent podcasts and said he has the same grade on Cam Jurgens as he does on Tyler Linderbaum as a similar scheme fit. So I disagree. I think he's fucking nuts for saying that. But I do respect the crap out of Daniel Jeremiah. And I will admit, Jurgens has a ton of upside. He's a really athletic guy with some decent, he's a bigger guy than Tyler Linderbaum, even though I think Linderbaum's stronger. But that was like, he said it under the radar and just kind of glossed over it. And I was like, what? Did he just say that? Whoa. But I think the Browns are being a little bit proactive at the center spot. And honestly, JC Treader is not the best athlete. So even though Treader's been really good, there's a world where a better scheme fit could actually be an upgrade for them. So I don't think it's doom and gloom. You're taking a risk there, but I understand their process there, and I don't think it's panic there. I think you can replace a center if you have a plan in place, and they have 4 awesome offensive linemen and plenty of options, both on the roster and in the draft coming up. Okay, we got Dallas coming up. I think I should get a quick. Do I have any water in here? Let me just get some water here because my voice is deteriorating. Yeah, just give me 1 second. This is going well, chat. I wasn't sure how this was going to work, but this setup is clutch with the screen on my right. Shout out to the person that taught me how to crop this, because this is clutch. All right. That's some good water right there. We are moving on, and we got a freaking interesting one to talk about here with Dallas. I don't even know where to start. They've done some stuff I like. I think the only thing to truly be critical of Dallas is back, giving Zeke the contract they did back then. But we all know that was dumb. Jerry's too loyal, all that stuff. It's not even really worth reiterating that, but that's why we're here. Because you can pretty much eye for an eye swap Amari Cooper's contract and Zeke's contract. You don't have to make any of these big sacrifices. Now, I think a big reason I would estimate that we're not seeing the Cowboys kind of do what the Packers are doing, what the Bucs are doing, where they're buying cap space from the future, really pushing the limits of the salary cap to keep everybody they can. I think the reason they're not doing that is because Dak is younger, and they are looking at this in a little bit more of a sustainable approach. I don't agree with releasing Amari Cooper, which is essentially what they did. I think he's phenomenal. I think you should get him more involved. To trade Amari Cooper for a 6th round pick is just not good process. And even if it's a result of previous bad process that got you there, it's just not something you ever want to do. So that one definitely stings. But if their thinking was, we can either have Amari Cooper and let Gallup and Dalton Schultz go, or we can get rid of Cooper and keep Gallup and Dalton Schultz, which is essentially what they're doing. Cooper was making about 20 mil. You put Dalton Schultz and Gallup together, and that's just over 20 mil. So it's almost a fair trade right there. And I tend to agree that when you have a number one wide receiver already in CeeDee Lamb, I'd rather have two more good complementary options than just one other complementary offense. I think that puts more stress on a defense. I think that also, given Dak Prescott's play style, I've talked about this, Dak is a quarterback who on third down, yes, he's a great athlete, but he's not a huge improviser. He's not a huge play extender. He would rather trust his read and in a pinch, put the ball up to a good ball winner, throw a good ball on third down to a good contested catch receiver, and hope that the receiver can make a play for him. And Michael Gallup is a much better ball winner than Amari Cooper, and those two have a great chemistry together. So I think it's not the end of the world. The Zeke contract is why you got here. I don't love it, but I can see how they got to this plan. They also did not re-sign Connor Williams, so he's gone. I think they'll be just fine there. They had the guy that was playing fullback for them. I would imagine they like his projection. Connor McGovern. And then the other weird thing is Lyle Collins looks like he's going to be out. And that to me is like, you're making a lot of you're jeopardizing a lot here. Lyle Collins is a hell of a football player, and things have kind of soured there. Now, Terrence Steele played pretty well at right tackle, so you're not going to be like miserable there, but all of a sudden, like, you're adding three major question marks to this offensive line where really you just have Zach Martin and even Tyron Smith. Like, if anything happens to Tyron Smith, we've seen what this offensive line looks like when it's just Zach Martin, and it's not pretty. So this kind of super offense that they've had is deteriorating, and you kind of knew that was going to happen. Now, they've done some nice stuff on the defense. They somehow convinced DeMarcus Lawrence to take a brilliant team contract there, 3 years, $40 million to stay in Dallas. Whew. I mean, that's a bargain. Great leader for the defense. Wasn't fully healthy last year, but I think he's got a few more really good years left in him. And then they tried to get Randy Gregory back opposite of him. I think they like Parsons as the hybrid piece and want another starter on the edge there. They kind of fell through. Randy Gregory went to Denver. There's still options for Denver. I think they were allocating some free agent budget for that edge position very clearly because they were making offers for Randy Gregory. So I think they'll do something with that money, probably at edge. So I guess keep an eye on Von Miller, who has ties to Texas. Would not surprise me. Keep an eye on Chandler Jones. Keep an eye on Zadarius Smith. Keep an eye on Jadeveon Clowney. I think all of those top edge guys. They bring back Malik Hooker. I think he was battling injuries. He was kind of in and out of the lineup. But he'll probably start at free safety or at least provide a third safety for you. So they're going with him over Damontae Kazee, who also played well, but I think getting one of those two back was smart. And that's kind of how they're looking. They still have a good team. I'm curious what they do with that second edge piece and the offensive line. I'm curious what happens with Lyle Collins here. Like, can they figure things out with Lyle Collins? Did the fact that they struck out on Randy Gregory, does that change their approach with Collins to like, okay, we were going to give Collins money to Randy Gregory, but we missed out on Gregory, so we're going to stick with Collins, which I think would be a smart reaction to that. I would not want to lose La'el Collins if I'm Dallas. We also got a super chat that Watson's been traded to the Panthers for 2 firsts. A lot of people saying that is not true. So we will wait for confirmation. If we get a Deshaun Watson trade during this stream, that will be hype, but I don't expect that to happen. All right, Dallas is done. On to the Broncos. Obviously, the Russell Wilson trade. We had a whole podcast episode about that. They haven't done a ton here. I guess they've made some big contracts. I didn't see they re-signed Josie Jewell as well. So DJ Jones, getting him in there makes a ton of sense. They traded Shelby Harris away. Harris is a very good run defender and a decent pass rusher. That's kind of what you get in DJ Jones. He's not Shelby Harris, but he's kind of a plug-in starter there next to Draymond Jones. That was a glaring hole after that trade that they needed to fill. I like DJ Jones a lot. The Niners are going to miss him, but I think that contract was just a little bit steep for their liking. So I like that signing. They get Randy Gregory here. Hey, the man likes his Mary J, and it's not legal in Texas, and it's legal in Colorado. I will say that. And he will be free to smoke as much Mary J as he wants, as it's no longer against the rules. It's legal in Denver. So you got to think that played some bit of a role. I don't know if Gregory has been on like a rehab tour to like stop smoking pot or what's going on there, but he can kind of have that behind him in Denver. You just hope he, goes to work, balls out at practice, and then he can do whatever he wants in his free time. I don't care as long as you produce, and he produced last year. So they needed another edge complement of next to Bradley Chubb. They got their guy. So, we had five glaring holes for the Broncos defense. Edge 2 locked up. No complaints about that. Randy Gregory was awesome last year. He's even developed an element of power. Interior defensive line number 2, locked up. Good player, DJ Jones. Middle linebacker. I don't think they're done, but Josie Jewell's an underrated player, especially as a number 2. They have Brandon Browning. I could get behind Josie Jewell and Brandon Browning. I think you could do a lot worse than those two guys, especially because Browning could potentially grow in year 2. But I don't think they're done. Keep an eye on like Bobby Wagner or something like that at linebacker for them. Miles Jack just got released as well, so that could be a move for them. But I like that re-signing. 2 years, $11 million for basically a starting caliber linebacker. They need a slot corner. I wouldn't be surprised if they work things out with Bryce Callahan, or even K'Wan Williams could be a good fit, but I think they'll figure something out with one of those. And they could really use another safety. So there's still a couple guys on the market. Marcus May would be a brilliant fit for them, but they are getting kind of plucked off the market. Tyrann Mathieu here makes a ton of sense. So I don't think Denver's done by any stretch of the imagination. Keep an eye on another linebacker and a safety and a right tackle. Do they get in on the La'el Collins market, perhaps? We've got a fake Skip Bayless account just said, make a roster for ESPN NFL 2K5. I wish I had time for that, but thank you so much for the super chat, Skip. Same thing, Jesse says, thoughts on Justin Reed. We are actually coming up on Kansas City here in just a few teams, so we will talk about him shortly, I promise. Just don't want to jump around too much here, but Teddy's doing great. He is so snuggled up right now. He didn't sleep all day because of the construction workers, so I'm just going to let him sleep a little bit longer. But Jesse, I'll try and remember to break Teddy out for the Chiefs here coming up. But we got Detroit. Detroit's been pretty quiet as well. I love the DJ Chark signing. Love it. That's one of my favorites. I should really take notes because I'm gonna have. Well, I guess I don't want to spoil too much here, but I also don't want to forget, and this is a good time. So favorite free agents. I want to take note here. I also got to respond to my wife, so give me a second. But we had Marcus Williams for the Ravens. Made me think of this, and honestly, I love DJ Chark here. I'll talk about that. Get back. Okay. All right. So they've done some good re-signings. I will give them that. They bring Evan Brown back, played at center valiantly, by the way, for Frank Ragnow. He is great depth. Alex Anzalone, they have a lot of issues at linebacker, so they keep him and Deion Hamilton back, so they at least have players there. They'll be thinking about that position, but they have players there. Tracy Walker, that's a great deal. I want to see him take that next step, but even if he doesn't, he's a quality starter, getting paid to be a good starter, versatile safety, so that's a good move. They get Charles Harris back. This, to me, is a reaction to Jacksonville's reaction. Jacksonville's Cam Robinson edge need, basically. They're not taking Evan Neal with the first pick anymore. They're going to be taking Aiden Hutchinson, which for Detroit, that changes their draft philosophy. And I think, maybe they'll still take Thibodeau, but that seems pretty unlikely. And I think they now look at it and say, okay, Charles Harris played really well last year. We got the Akwara twins, and we're happy with that as our edge group. Charles Harris, a former first-round pick. The man had like 50 pressures last year, really came unlocked. They bring Khalif Raymond back. Does he return kicks for them? I would hope so at that price, because he's not a great receiver. But he can play a little bit. But DJ Chark, love this one, man. Absolutely love it. Jared Goff is not a bad vertical passer. He is not great at a lot of things. He's finicky under pressure. He's not an athlete. But one thing that Jared Goff perennially does not get enough credit for is his arm talent and his deep ball ability. And when he gets time to throw, and when he has receivers coming open deep, he can hit them down the field. So I love this with DJ Chark. Now, I don't get why the market wasn't bigger for him. Maybe his medicals are a bigger concern than we're leading on, but that's a bargain for Detroit. And their receiving core is starting to make a lot more sense now, because you have your vertical threat. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who works really well underneath. And then they have an opportunity now through the draft maybe to add your other kind of X receiver. Like, that's really why I like this. You've got your tight end in TJ Hawkinson, but you have your Y vertical threat. Or sorry, actually, your X, Y, and Z. I always struggle with this, but I think it's actually your Z is your backside perimeter player. Your Y is the slot, right? But anyway, you got your slot guy in Amon-Ra St. Brown. You got DJ Chark running vertical, working the sideline, keeping the defense honest. And then you have an opportunity in the draft with a back end of the first round pick, a second round pick. They have 3 top 34 picks in a good receiver class. So you could get, I don't know if that's Drake London, but Drake London could fit in this situation, I think. It could be a George Pickens in the second round. You have a chance to get that true X receiver that can run the whole route tree and pair really well with this group. You got a great offensive line. You are putting yourself in such a great position to help whatever quarterback is there, whether it's Jared Goff, whether it is Malik Willis, whether you take a quarterback at the end of the first in a Corral or Howell, whatever it may be. Yeah, you do have Quintez Cephas there, Coaster Hour. That's a good call, but I think Cephas is going to take a back seat a little bit with DJ Chark stepping in here. Chark's just a better version of Quintez Cephas. But yeah, love that move. They're not overspending. They're continuing to build this core, and I'm a fan. All right, Green Bay, as I take a sip out of the Packers cup here. Honestly, not a lot to say here. Really, if you go back to my Packers blueprint series, this is really according to plan. I don't think anything has strayed from what we said there, other than Dean Lowry hasn't been released yet, which to me would make a lot of sense. Tanner, thank you for the super generous super chat. Am I the only one concerned about the Patriots? No, I'm definitely concerned about the Patriots, man. We'll get there. But, God, what is Bill Belichick doing? I feel like he's lost it. But, yeah, Rodgers comes back, gets all the money. Not going to get into that. We talked about that in the last podcast. Devontae Adams, we actually talked about that a little bit earlier when we got the super chat about that earlier, but I do feel very confident they will work it out, but that's going to get expensive. Zadarius Smith getting released was expected. I talked about Billy Turner getting released as a pretty obvious decision there. I am excited to see if Green Bay thinks Elton Jenkins is a right tackle. Remember Elton Jenkins, their left guard, stepped in at left tackle and played at least a Pro Bowl level for them until he tore his ACL against the Vikings. But I would be very curious if they see Elton Jenkins as a right tackle or if they like Josh Nishman, who played pretty well at left tackle himself after Elton Jenkins went down. So they have pieces on the offensive line. I think that cut made a lot of sense. They keep Preston Smith around. I thought this was smart. I figured this is what we said in the Blueprint series, that they can free up cap space by extending Preston Smith. He's a reliable number 2 edge, had a really good year last year. It fills a need, made sense. You don't want to create a gaping hole there. This is kind of the big deal, I guess, is Devondre Campbell. It was unclear if they were going to be able to fit him in here, and that was big to keep him. He was a first-team All-Pro linebacker, or maybe second team, but he was just he was so good for this defense in every way. Huge impact, good kind of team-friendly contract, 5 years, $50 million. What is his cap hit in year one? We might not know that yet. I mean, only a $4 million cap hit in the first season. Not even ever like that big of a deal. If he doesn't repeat, you can get out of him after 3 years. Just a fantastic contract for Green Bay. Very team friendly. I mean, you see Foye Setaluakun get $15 million. He got $15 million guaranteed over a 5-year contract. Like, that's just a super team friendly deal. No brainer for Green Bay if he was able to accept that. And then they put the second round tender on Alan Lazard. I think that's $4 million that you're wiping your ass with and shoving it down the drain, but they like him, so it is what it is. He's a waste of space as a receiver, but fans like him and Aaron Rodgers likes him, so I guess you got to keep him. But I would rather let him hit the market, and if someone signs him, they sign him. But he's a league minimum type of player, but they like him. It's not the end of the world. It's only $4 million. That's the Packers. Not a whole lot going on. Houston Texans, also really not a whole lot going on. We knew this was going to happen. They're busy. Oh, that's interesting. That must have just happened. That could be noteworthy. I'll talk about that. But they've been busy with the Watson situation. They're not going to be big spenders because they're not trying to win right now. They're trying to establish a culture, figure out what veteran players want to play here. And, they got Malik Collins back. That's, wow. I need a bell. I need a bell to ring. I said the first move I would make if I was Houston is re-sign Malik Collins for about 2 years, 17. I think I literally said 2 years, $17 million. Love that for Houston. If there are any diehard Texans fans here, that's a good one right there. He's a physical player up front, allows you to kind of keep building that D-line up. Really like that move. Interesting. They signed Justin Britt. Is he getting healthy? They got AJ Cann. Hold on. I kind of like what Houston's doing here, man. These are some nice moves. If they think Justin Britt is healthy, he comes back at center. AJ Cann at right guard. Malik Collins. They got MJ Stewart to play some corner for them. Bring Farrell Brown back. Desmond King on a 2-year deal. God, he's had a fall off. And then Laramie Tunsil converts salary cap into bonus. That, to me, signals that relationships are good and that they're probably keeping Laramie Tunsil, which is good. I kind of like this for Houston, man. They're slow playing it. They're not blowing their load on anything stupid. I can get behind that for Houston. So, kind of like last year. I said last year, I don't hate their offseason, all things considered. They had a better year than they expected. Kind of similar here. So, all right. I don't hate it. There were some moves in there that I didn't know happened. Indianapolis Colts fans, pitchforks outside of Indianapolis coming after Ballard, and it is frustrating. Like, they just don't do anything. It's kind of weird. And they traded their quarterback away. They're in this weird window all of a sudden. Tunsil tweeted a GIF saying, "I'm not going anywhere." I love it. I'm glad they worked things out. They're repairing things there. They're building a new culture. They're getting rid of Watson. I'm curious to see where they go. I'm pulling for them, man. That's a hell of a rebuild if they pull it off. Would be a hell of a job by Nick Caserio. Was Nick Caserio the mastermind behind the New England Patriots dynasties? Might call him. Maybe. Belichick's gone off a cliff since he left, so maybe that's a take. But Indianapolis Colts, they trade Wentz away. We've talked about that. They brought Doolin back. He's a role player, deep threat. I did say they got to bring Mo Alley Cox back. That was kind of a no-brainer. Not surprised that's the first thing they took care of. Jack Doyle retired. Good starting tight end, good blocker, good glue guy for them. Zaire Franklin, excellent special teamer. They signed Sais, Matt Pryor, got $5.5 million. Why? I don't get that. And Taquan Lewis. That's a great deal for Taquan Lewis. He was playing really well last year before he got hurt. He's going to outplay that contract. I like that deal a lot. I had us re-signing him in our Blueprint series, but really not a whole lot to say for the Colts. They got to do something, man. They got to do something. Fans are getting really impatient there for Indianapolis. 5 quarterbacks in 5 years, and yet again, you're not spending any money in free agency. Like, at some point, you gotta get off your ass and do something. So, Jacksonville. Okay, here we go. Woo-wee. This is the big one, right? All right. A lot of good in here. A lot of questionable as well. But they very quietly... Let's do the big ones first. This is one of my favorite signings in all of free agency. Brandon Sheriff, let me put it on my list. We talked about this in the blueprints, where you got to go O-line, wide receiver, playmakers. Like, you got to give everything for Trevor Lawrence that he needs to succeed. And both of their guards were free agents. AJ Cann went to Houston. And Andrew Norwell, I think, is still a free agent. But they upgraded big time. Brandon Sheriff gets 3 years, $50 million. Probably the highest paid guard in the NFL. I love this move for Jacksonville. He is such a beast. So, no-brainer. One of my favorite moves. Fix up the offensive line. You've got tackles. You've got a great center in Brandon Linder. I will say, if Walker Little takes a step at right tackle, or maybe Juwan Taylor takes a step at right tackle next year, with both guys have shown good signs, if one of them moves into left guard and plays well, that can all of a sudden be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL for Trevor Lawrence with 2 great running backs. So I love that move. I love the Evan Ingram move. Athletic tight end, a mismatch piece. I love that move. 1 year, $9 million. All about it. Hope his hands get better. They probably won't, but I think it's a risk worth taking. They spent a lot of money to get some receivers in here. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones. You know, this basically says they prefer Zay Jones to DJ Chark, which is just mind-boggling. Zay Jones had a good year for the Raiders last year. I think there's a chance he can continue to improve as he has done, and with starting opportunities, play up to his role as a number two, a perimeter backside receiver, good jump ball guy, decent route runner. I don't think he does, but he has potential to do that. Good athlete with size. It's not the end of the world. It's probably a contract they can get out of pretty easily, I would assume. Yeah. I mean, they can get out of it after next year for basically nothing. So it's basically a 2-year, $14 million contract. And if he really breaks out, he gets that last year. But it's basically 2 years, 14. I don't hate that. This one, a lot of people believe in Christian Kirk. I'm not going to be surprised if he turns into a superstar. Actually, I'd be surprised if he turns into a superstar, but I wouldn't be surprised if he turns into like a good receiver. But this is asinine. This is absolutely mental. This is desperation and a lack of awareness. What the hell has Christian Kirk done on a football field that warrants this money? This blows my mind. Christian Kirk should have gotten a 1-year. Christian Kirk should have gotten what DJ Chark got. If Chark got this contract, I'd be a lot less surprised than Christian Kirk getting it. But Christian Kirk should have gotten a 1-year decent money because we know you're talented, but you got to actually go out and show us what you can do contract. Instead, they paid him like one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. And this can actually turn into an $84 million contract with incentives. It's just asinine. It's too much. He's a good player. He's an upgrade for you. I get you have to pay receivers, you have to pay players more to come to Jacksonville. But that's part of why you have Trevor Lawrence now. You shouldn't have to do that. It's questionable at best. But at the end of the day, like, you're sitting here and your offense is significantly better. And they might still draft a receiver, which would be really nice. If at the top of the second round, if they get a George Pickens or a Drake London or something like that, this thing can come together. But that's just way too much freaking money for Christian Kirk. I'll be stunned if he plays up to half of that contract. He's a slot guy. He's also a little bit redundant with Laviska Shenault, who I guess you're just giving up on now. Which is a theme here. Is this team giving up on players? This is another thing I just don't like. I like Foyesade Oluokun. Good player, good run and chase linebacker. But he's a second guy. He's an undersized backer. He's not a run defender. He's not he's not a 3-down linebacker. If he is, you're putting him next to a good other guy. I'm not going to shred this to pieces, but it's too much. Now, hold on. What I'm not seeing here. We talked about this on the stream yesterday. And I said that did Peter Schrager screw up? Because within 5 minutes, they announced Foyesade Oluokun and my guy Falorenzo Fatukasi. And I said, those names are very similar. Did Peter Schrager just screw up and announce Fatukasi to the Jags instead of Oluokun? And I'm not seeing Lorenzo Fatukasi here. What's, is that just not official, or did he not pass his physical yet? What's going on here? Oh, I spelled that wrong. It hasn't been announced yet. That's a little suspicious. Maybe the Jets are... We see one or two of these every year, where someone commits early and then they change their mind. We'll have to monitor that situation. That I trust Spotrac, so we'll see. But if that comes through and they get a 3 years, $30 million, I do like that signing for the Jags. Completes the defensive line a little bit. You've got Fatukasi, some other young pieces they've drafted on the interior. You've got Josh Allen on the edge. You're going to draft Aiden Hutchinson. You got Oluokun. Now Miles Jack gets cut here. I did like the idea of Miles Jack and Oluokun together, but you cut Miles Jack. And one of the PFF guys had a great tweet where he's like, this is bad process to pay Oluokun $15 million per year and basically also cut Miles Jack. And you take $5 million of dead cap by cutting Miles Jack. So essentially you can put that $5 million on top of Oluokun's deal, and now you're paying Oluokun $20 million. And I'm not even convinced Foy said Oluokun is a better player than Miles Jack. In fact, I'm pretty confident that he isn't. So that to me is just kind of crazy. It's as the retweet I had of the guy I mentioned, it's just throwing money around to throw money around. I like getting Wingard back. He's a decent player. But it's just this is what the Jags have done, man. They throw money around. And I like a lot of the stuff they did. I think they're spending a little bit too much here. Like, if Trevor's really good, like, for example, look what the Chargers were able to do this offseason. They found out that Herbert's really good, and they have enough money to just blow out for, like, really good players. And they'll still be able to do some of that, but, like, it's a lot of money that's going to be on the books. So, we'll see. We did get a super chat from Alex Sims. Aaron Wilson saying Tehran goes back if they land Watson. I guess it wouldn't surprise me. The cap is a myth, right? Okay, we're getting there, guys. We're about halfway through. We got Kansas City coming up. So as promised, this is our Teddy Cam moment. Come here, Ted. Come here, buddy. Let's say hi to the stream for a minute. Wah. Say hello. Say go Chiefs. He's like, put me back to sleep, please. He is very tired. Okay. Kansas City Chiefs. Not a whole lot going on here. I did see they got Josh Gordon back. I mean, why not? He's going to be basically free. This is really all it's worth talking about. Justin Reed back here. I love it, man. I had a closet take, something I don't truly believe in, but I kind of believe in it. And I said, I think the Chiefs got better at safety and cheaper by moving from Matthew to Justin Reed. Now, it's a little bit of a projection because I think Reed's best football is ahead of him. I think Matthew's worst football is ahead of him. It's a little bit of a projection. But I think Justin Reed can do everything Tyrann Mathieu does. Man up slot corners, provide range as a free safety, provide leadership as a communicator of your defense, a true versatile safety and a leader of your team. I think he can do all of that and provide better range and size at the position. Now, again, it's a bit of a projection, but I will not be surprised if Justin Reed is a better safety for the Chiefs than Tyrann Mathieu was, at least last year and the year before that. So, we'll see how that take plays out. I'm not like dying on that hill, but I think there's a lot of reason to me saying that. And then they rework things with Frank Clark. That's good for the Chiefs, creates cap flexibility. I imagine it was really difficult for them to cut him because his contract was so massive. I don't know the true details of this situation, but to reduce his cap number is a win for the Chiefs because this guy is so freaking overpaid. I figured he'd be back on the team because of all of the guaranteed money that they gave him. But to reduce his cap number is a win for the Chiefs. And, I said you had to either go with Orlando Brown or Tyrann Mathieu. That held true, but they got a really good contract on Justin Reed. And by the way, after Jesse Bates gets his money, after Derwin James gets his money, I think Justin Reed in a year, making $10 million a year, is going to be comparable to the way we feel about like the Packers' Adrian Amos contract, where he got a pretty cheap contract, like $9 million a year. And looking back on that, he has well outplayed that. And I think Justin Reed's going to do that. So pretty basic for the Chiefs, but a job well done. A job well done. Okay, Las Vegas. They haven't made a lot of noise here. They haven't done really anything. They signed Darius Phillips. I like that. They gave Max Crosby the huge extension. If you haven't checked out my Max Crosby film breakdown, let me see if I can get. Yeah, let's drop a link here. Only 4,000 views on this bad boy. See if we can get some more views on this bad boy. I spent a lot of time working on this video. I was kind of disappointed at how it turned out, but Max Crosby's a beast, man. He had a great year. It took advantage of a lot of bad tackles, but he was a legit Defensive Player of the Year candidate. So for them to, wrap him up, top edge money, I hope he can continue to produce because, again, he did really go up against a lot of bad tackles, but great story, and he's going to be their best player on defense for the foreseeable future. So I understand locking him up, and you had to pay him that much because he produced like it. So I don't have any issues with the deal. A little bit risky because it was a 1 year like true breakout, but man, his tape is good. So no issues there. And Darius Phillips, nice sneaky little signing there. I like Darius Phillips. Just kind of got washed out in Cincinnati, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some playing time there as a good fourth corner. And that's all we got for the Raiders. They've been pretty quiet. I think they're well aware, like, oh crap, like this division just got impossible. We probably shouldn't spend all of our money. We should probably be a little bit more conservative here, and I think they're right for doing that. Okay, the Chargers. Love what the Chargers are doing. I mean, we've kind of talked about these already, but what a start. You get your receiver back. You get Khalil Mack. Like, just great start for them. They get their deep threat in Jalen Guyton back for cheap. And then J.C. Jackson goes here. Like, dude, they had Khalil Mack and J.C. Jackson. Those are top 10 players at premium positions of need for them. So you're going to have the best pass rush duo in the NFL. You're going to have one of the better corner duos in the NFL, J.C. Jackson and Asante Samuel in year 2. Those guys are going to be making so many plays. Like, you're going to be forcing mistakes with this pass rush, and you've got two of the more opportunistic cornerbacks in the league. Pick City and Derwin James back there. And I would bet my life that we continue to see growth from Nasir Adderley at free safety. So this defense, and by the way, the easiest free agent prediction of all time. I think if you were an NFL analyst and you didn't predict this before free agency, honestly, shame on you. It was that easy because Joseph Day was clearly going to be let go from the Rams. The Chargers with Brandon Staley, who coached Sebastian Joseph Day, on the Rams, desperately need run defense help up front. They had the most cap space in the league. It was the easiest free agency prediction of all free agency predictions, and they got it done. 3 years, $24 million. That's less than BJ Hill, Fadu Kasi, and DJ Jones. And honestly, I think he's right up there with those guys. So that's a no-brainer. You're getting better up front. Even Austin Johnson's a sneaky signing. He's better than, Linval still is okay, but I think Austin Johnson's a better run defender than Linval. And those are cheap deals. They don't have to be done. They just released Brian Bulaga. That was another thing we predicted in our Chargers blueprint. It makes total sense. The guy just can't stay healthy. I wouldn't be surprised if he retires. They do need to still figure out the right side of this line. There's options out there. Wouldn't be surprised for this to be a Billy Turner landing spot. Maybe a Lyle Collins landing spot here. Morgan Moses. Darrell Williams at right tackle could work pretty well here. There's still a lot of guys out there, but they gotta get at least a right tackle, and preferably you can get a right guard and a right tackle. But I love everything the Chargers are doing. The hype is real, and I gotta get my. Let's do that right now. Let's place a little before I forget. If the books are open, let's get our Chargers Super Bowl bets in before this gets even higher. Let's see. They probably aren't open in the middle of free agency. Let's see. NFL. I think they are. Chargers at plus 1450. That's about as high as I like, but we're doing it. We're going to throw a little chunk of change on the LA Chargers, because it is real. Love everything they're doing, and I don't think they're done. Tanner, thanks for another super chat, Tanner. Really appreciate the support. But if a healthy Chargers team misses the playoffs, is Staley gone? Honestly, I don't think that's a bad take. I thought he was okay in year one. Now, he's a really likable guy. It wouldn't be an easy decision, but God, that would be a colossal disappointment. Now, their division's really hard, so if they just barely miss it, and, it's a Week 18 loss to the Chiefs by a last-second field goal or something like that, I think it's really unfortunate, but I think it'd be, context always matters, but the pressure's on. They got to at least win a playoff game. All right. We've got the Rams. Not a whole lot to talk about here. We knew that was going to be the case. I will say I am surprised that they haven't locked up Odell yet. But they took care of their offensive line. I'm a little bit surprised they went with Brian Allen over Austin Corbett. I think Corbett's a much more important player for them, and I think Brian Allen was much more replaceable. We also talked about how many move block centers are going to be available in this draft. Granted, they don't have draft picks, so I guess you have to think about that. But even in the third round, they could have gotten a guy, or you sign a guy, but it's not like they have a lot of money. I don't hate the move. I don't ever hate keeping starting offensive linemen. It's not some massive contract, but I do find it interesting that they prioritized Allen over Corbett, because I just think Corbett's a much better player than Brian Allen. So I will just make a note of that, but I don't hate it. Love keeping Joseph Noteboom. I think this is very similar to when the Eagles paid Jordan Mailata, where at the time it looked a little big for the casual observer. But if you really understand the player, his trajectory is skyrocketing. And I think Noteboom by the end of this year as a left tackle, now granted the cap hit skyrockets, but I think 15 mil, 17 mil cap hit. They did backload the crap out of it, but it's a well-structured contract where the guarantees are early and get out of it late. But he's going to outperform that contract. I feel pretty good about that. So they had to do something with that offensive line. They were losing three starters. Four starters? Who's their left guard? No, left guard is a free agent next year. Edwards. So they kept 2 out of 3 starters, and they'll have to find an answer at guard. Whitworth retired. We knew that was happening, and they did have to release their punter. They'll survive. But yeah, they aren't a team that was going to be able to make a ton of moves. Keep an eye on them working things out with like Von Miller and Odell Beckham. I will be far from surprised if those guys are back. I think those guys are maybe seeing what their market value is a little bit, but both those guys I think could be back here, and the Rams will be looking to run it back next year. Also, Darius Williams has not been signed yet. Another guy that could very well fit in here. We do have a couple super chats here from Andrew. Hope all is well. Missed a bit of today's stream because I've been busy. Do you possibly see Michael Thomas being traded elsewhere? Yeah, I think there's been enough with Michael Thomas and that organization to believe that that's possible. I think it's at a point where the trade contractually, he's far enough from the signing that, let's see. If they trade him, it wouldn't feel good, that's for sure. But it wouldn't murder him either. I mean, there's a lot of guaranteed money on that deal, so I think they would prefer not to, but if they got enough, I think they would. And it also depends what happens with Watson. You know, if they go get Watson, they're not going to move him. I don't think he would get moved for Watson. Maybe he would. But I think if they don't get Watson, I think it's certainly possible. Tom Brady coming back and Watson probably going in that division somewhere else is kind of what it feels like. But if they get Watson, I think he'll definitely be there. And then from RH7926, love the content. What do you think of the Lions' future? The Lions, to me, are doing what virtually nobody does successfully for this long, and that is have patience and foresight, and you get incrementally better every day, and understand that it's not going to happen overnight. You're not going to win a bunch of games right away. You're not going to get the results immediately, but you build up your lines. You get great coaches, which I think they have, and you build and you collect assets. And I do believe that they're finally, after firing Caldwell and going through Patricia and Schwartz and all the Stafford era, they're understanding that they need to build something. They need to build in a different way, and I really appreciate the way they're doing that. Now, if they draft Malik Willis with the 2nd overall pick, I have my doubts. Because I think that's a really important pick for them to, it's a big part of the rebuild. Like, you commit to a rebuild, you're going to suck, you're going to get a really good pick. It's important that you turn those top 5 picks into, like, franchise cornerstone players. Now, obviously, a quarterback could be that guy, but I don't feel great that that's going to be Malik Willis. So for me, it's like, make that an Ikem Ekwonu, make that a trade down and get, or you could even just take Kyle Hamilton there, or trade down and get a Garrett Wilson or something like that, or get a Derek Stingley, or make it a franchise cornerstone type of player. But I do really believe in the in the Lions' future, but they still have a long ways to go before I would be betting on it. But I love their plan. Okay, let's move on to Miami, who's been, I think quietly making some good moves. I really like these moves, Cedric Wilson and Connor Williams. Cedric Wilson is a great fit with what they have. You've got, I didn't think they'd be big spenders at wide receiver, but they definitely needed another guy in there. You bring Preston Williams back as well to kind of compete with Cedric Wilson, but you've got You've got your bigger bodied perimeter guy. You've got your X in Jalen Waddle. And now you have Cedric Wilson, who can kind of be that movable receiver. He's really good from the slot. He's great on crossing routes, run after the catch, this is going to be the 49ers offense coming in here. He's going to be a good weapon for Tua. I like signing Teddy Bridgewater, all jokes aside. Tua's got injury questions. He's questionable to be your future. You're trying to compete. He's a good mentor for Tua. He's from Miami. He's currently the best quarterback on their roster, and people are going to complain about that, but it's true. There's no piece of film. There's no statistics. There's no data point that could possibly tell you that Tua is a better quarterback than Teddy. You just hope that Tua develops. But just as we saw with Fitzpatrick in there 2 years ago, he was a big part of them making the playoffs that year. So I think having him on the team helps this team in a lot of ways. And it only pushes Tua to continue getting better. And this is obviously the steal right here. Connor Williams, 2 years, $14 million. Connor Williams is going to ball out in this system. He is a fantastic move blocking athletic guard. He's also a guy that's played tackle in the past. I don't think they'd move him to tackle, but he's got that flexibility if you've got injuries there to do it. And where Connor Williams really struggles is anchoring in pass protection. And you're right, Miami never made the playoffs. They just missed, unfortunately, with a good record 2 years ago. That's true. But they were a double-digit win team. But anyway, where Connor Williams struggles is in a system more like the Cowboys have, where you're going to have a lot more traditional drop backs, more of your classic spread West Coast offense, where he can get overwhelmed by power. And that's always going to be in the back of your mind. But a lot of schemes, a lot of these move blocking linemen are sheltered by these moving pockets because they're able to move and reset a lot better than the defensive tackles are. And just the movement alone throws off a power rushing defensive tackle's ability to just take 3 steps and overwhelm a Connor Williams. So his weaknesses are going to be protected by this Shanahan system, and his strengths are going to be maximized. So that's a great signing. You've filled in one of your spots. So you got 4 more, 4 more to fill in, really. And that's pretty much. They signed Chase Edmonds. They brought Emmanuel Ogbah back, so they've done some other stuff. They brought Nick Needham back. Makes sense. I talked about re-signing Ogbah in their Blueprint series. No-brainer for me. That was a good take on that Blueprint series. I think I had him right at that contract number. So getting him back is a good move for them. He's a really good scheme fit, an impact player for that defense. And then Chase Edmonds, 2 years, $12 million. They did need a starting running back, and they've really struggled to find it. They haven't drafted well there. And he's going to be a good scheme fit with the outside zone stuff. It's not a ton of money. I'm not going to shred them for it. If you're going to pay a running back, it better be in a situation where you actually need one and you're not crippling your future. I still wouldn't have made that move. I would have just drafted a guy, but I'm not going to shred him for it either. Game effect with the Super Chat. Packers first few rounds thoughts. Drake London, question mark? I would be upset if they took Drake London in the first round, because that's not who they need, right? They have Alan Lazard. Yes, thank you. Also another super chat from EM Baller. Had to spend $2 to clarify that I meant to say 3 more, not 4 more, because Robert Hunt is a good right card. You are right. That was a misspeak by me. But yeah, no, I don't think Drake London is a good fit. I honestly, the receivers that are going to be there in the first, unless they're getting Olave or something like that, which seems unlikely. I would love it if they took Jahan Dotson, but I don't think they'll do that. He's too short. I don't think they'll take a John Mechie. George Pickens, he's too risky because he just hasn't produced. I think they need their Marquez Valdez-Scantling replacement. They need that deep threat, which is not Drake London. So I look in the second round, like, can you get... there's a lot of hype for the North Dakota State kid. Name's escaping me right now. Oh boy, what's his name? Christian Watson. There's a lot of hype for him. He would fit really well. He's very similar to MVS, not great hands, not like a polished route runner, but good speed and size. I look at some other vertical options like Alex Pierce, maybe second, third round. I don't really see Green Bay drafting a receiver in the first round because I think they're probably going to go with an interior defensive lineman in the first. And go receiver, maybe double up at receiver, honestly, second, third round. Also wouldn't be surprised if they went offensive line in the first, but and I don't fault them for that strategy of recognizing the depth. They just have to actually execute because that's something they haven't done. They've passed on receiver in the first, which you can live with, but you can't screw up your second and third round picks. So not that they've necessarily screwed up those picks, but they sure as hell have not hit on impact receivers like other teams have in those spots. Okay, getting towards the end here. Minnesota Vikings have been pretty quiet. They extended Kirk. I've been pounding the table. These Kirk Cousins trade talks are just a waste of time. They're not moving Kirk. They didn't come in here to tank. They feel like they can win with Kirk. This is the same offensive staff that spent a lot of time winning games with Jared Goff. Kirk Cousins is a better version of that. They signed. This was interesting. They basically flipped Michael Pierce for Harrison Phillips. Pierce kind of just was a flop here, had a hard time staying healthy, opted out in the COVID season. I think just time for a change of scenery. Harrison Phillips, a good run defender. I'm not overly critical of that. They probably saved a little bit of money by making that move. And they just signed Jordan Hicks, who's a good number 2 linebacker, probably gives you more in that system than you were going to get from Anthony Barr, who's leaving anyway. He's a good player next to Eric Kendricks. Neither are great run defenders, but it helps that you've got Phillips and you've got Tomlinson up in the middle as well. So, Vikes are not swimming in cap space. I think they're going to make another move here at either edge or corner. But they're just kind of status quo right now. The Vikings are going to figure out who they are, who their core players are. They've got a new GM and a new head coach. They're in a transition period. They're not, especially with like no cap space. I don't think they're going to like go for it right away, right? They're going to kind of try to win, which is the right thing to do. It's not a bad team, but they got to sort through a lot. They got to figure out what players fit well here, what are their actual needs and all this stuff before they just start going crazy. So I'm not surprised that they're just kind of coasting through, making little moves that I think are incremental improvements, but nothing dramatic here from Minnesota, which shouldn't have been expected. From Jeffrey, what do you think about JC Treader to the Vikings? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't give up on Bradbury quite yet, even though it's tempting. But I certainly would not fault them. And you could probably move Bradbury to guard or JC Treader to guard. But he knows the system in that, at least the blocking scheme, being that kind of wide zone approach up front. So, yeah, I think the Vikes could definitely benefit from one more interior offensive lineman. I don't think it's a gaping need, but right guard is a need. They have Davis out of Ohio State. And a self-made man, obviously, I'm not going to answer that question, but thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Okay. New England, you got to be critical here, right? What is Bill Belichick doing? What are you doing? This is a joke. You already have question marks on the offensive line. Trent Brown is gone. What are you doing? That's a horrible trade. Shaq Mason is one of the 10 best guards in the NFL, and you're just going to hand him to Tom Brady? It just makes me sick. It makes me mad that Bill Belichick would do that. So I don't even care if they're clearing up cap space to make another move. Do it another way. That's just terrible. James White back for 2.5 a year is a great move. We know what he can be when he's healthy, so I'm totally behind that. They love him in that locker room. And I agree with keeping Devin McCourty around. They need to find a long-term answer at free safety. Probably that. Keep an eye on that in the draft. This trade, we talked about that earlier in the Browns section. I think it makes sense for them. They didn't have a need for Winovich. They've drafted well at edge, or at least scheme fits on the edge. So I think getting Mac Wilson, who should start for them, I think he's going to be a good player for them. I do like that trade for New England. It makes sense. Winovich had a great rookie season, but he had a falling out with that staff, and I think it makes sense. Technically, Winovich is worth more, but it's not anything like I would freak out about. But yeah, the Shaq Mason thing, what are you doing? That's just horrible. Absolutely horrible. They haven't figured out the receiver situation. They haven't fixed their O-line. Their cornerback room is a mess. They let J.C. Jackson out of the building, by the way, who got paid way less than I thought he was going to get. I think Belichick needs to lose control of the roster. And I don't know if he wants to coach anymore if he doesn't have control of the roster. But this is just not working. Made some decent moves in last free agency, but a lot of them weren't good moves. And clearly they're dealing with some cap issues. So, is this a result of paying Nelson Aguilar all that money? Is this a result of paying 2 tight ends all that money that one you didn't even use? It's frustrating, man. I will just say any Packers fan that was in a rush to get rid of Aaron Rodgers, and at least Jordan Love was in place, and you don't know how that was going to go, but this is potentially life after your quarterback leaves. I'm sorry, Patriots fans. It's rough. They're not going to suck, but they had a good year last year. You were hoping they build off of it, and I don't see where this is going right now. Okay, we got a bunch of super chats. Thank you, guys. You guys are freaking awesome, man. This has been a really fun stream so far. So we got from Chris, could you see a team falling in love with Howell's 2020 tape and taking him round 1? Yeah, I will not be surprised if Howell is taken round 1. Hell, in a lot of my what I would do mock drafts, I've taken him round 1. He was in my last what I would do mock draft. He was my first quarterback off the board. So definitely will not be surprised. He's got the traits. All reports are he's a very hard worker and hoping he is not the next Mitch Trubisky out of North Carolina. But there's a lot of holes in his game as well. And his deep accuracy does concern me. He's just a very sporadic passer, but I will not be surprised if Howell goes round 1. As a developmental piece, I agree with it. Teams like Tennessee, Pittsburgh now. What if Pittsburgh takes him and he becomes what Trubisky couldn't be as Trubisky starts for a little bit? That'd be a really funny story. 2 North Carolina quarterbacks there. What else we got here? Tommy with the super chat. Let's make Marcus the Patriots GM and have Bill be strictly head coach. I'm game. From MD Andrews, I just want to say, after cursing the boys yesterday, hoping they wouldn't screw up, I was looking good. Now I will never talk again. Are you talking about the Randy Gregory thing, or was there a Lyle Collins trade that was announced? I don't know exactly what you're referring to. Maybe the Randy Gregory thing. I don't think the Cowboys are screwed. Like, they're still going to be favorites in the East. Their offense is still going to run pretty well. You hate that Mike McCarthy's still your head coach, but I definitely don't think they're screwed. They had a really strong team last year. It's disappointing that the season ended in the way it did, but they also kind of overachieved in a lot of ways too. So I don't think they're like, screwing themselves. They've just had to make some really tough decisions based on the Zeke deal. And then Andrew also said, coming from someone that follows the Pats, that was a damn big yikes. Like, what is happening? Let's forget about us winning and just let Brady win. Yeah, seriously. Of course it had to be to frickin' Tom Brady, who is coming up here in just a few. All right, New Orleans, really not a whole lot going on that's even worth mentioning. Like, literally nothing's going on. They've just been trying to get under the cap. They lost Marcus Williams. We knew that was going to happen. It seems like they're holding out hope that maybe they can land Watson and maybe get Teron Armstead back. And after what the Bucs have pulled off, and after what we've seen Green Bay pull off, what we've seen these Saints pull off for years, will not be surprising if they find their way around the cap yet again. Because I stopped believing that the Saints had a salary cap years ago. So really nothing to talk about with the Saints yet. Could be some news there in the coming days. Giants have been quiet. I like these moves. And we knew that they didn't have a lot of cap flexibility here. So really, this is it. Mark Lewinsky, John Feliciano, I like those moves. I really do. I think Lewinsky is obviously a starter. I think John Feliciano becomes your second best interior offensive lineman. I think he's better than anything they had there last year. He's a guy that Joe Shane and Brian Dable are very familiar with, so that's an easy guy. He can play center or guard, depending on who you end up getting at guards. So they're stabilizing the offensive line. They need to find two more starters, and Feliciano isn't even a guaranteed starter, but those are smart. Tyrod Taylor is certainly fascinating. I mean, that's not a lot for him. And if things go south with things aren't going to go. They're going to play Daniel Jones through the year, but he's a good backup. A really good backup. So they waived Caden Smith. That's interesting. I thought he played pretty well last year, but he's not a great athlete. They need a tight end. They have like no tight ends on their roster. Do they have anybody? Oh, they still have They have literally no tight ends. Apparently their starter right now is something called a Jake Houseman. Can Matt Parrott play tight end? So they got to find a tight end. They're going to be in the market there. I mean, how can you not? You literally don't have one. Unless... Jeez, that's crazy. All right. Pretty straightforward there. We got the Jets. I like what the Jets have done. So they started with the Laken Tomlinson move. A little bit unfortunate that Fatukasi got out, but it's not the end of the world. You can find other defensive tackles. They actually signed an extension for Nathan Shepard, it looks like. So they must like him more than we realize. We'll see if he can have a bigger year next year, but I love the Laken Tomlinson signing. That's one of my favorites. I'm going to put him on my list of favorites because he fits right in. Obviously, the staff is familiar with him, with Mike LaFleur, who was a part of Laken Tomlinson's breakout there for the Jets over the last, or for the Niners over the last few years. You know he runs well in your system. You know what he does in the locker room. It's about as safe of a signing as you can make because they are familiar with him. Salah was the head coach as well. So I love that signing. Fits, everything you want to do here. And he's a plug-in at right guard, just helping Zach Wilson have a better offensive line. I think bringing Barrios makes sense as a fourth receiver, can play slot, returns kicks for you. Pretty easy decision there, not a ton of money. CJ Uzama gets a decent chunk of change here. I don't blame Cincinnati for letting him go. He's a good player, but he doesn't do anything like, he's not a phenomenal blocker. He's not a great separator. I don't think he's an amazing contested catch guy. I think he's just fine. So he's a starting caliber tight end for you, which the Jets were desperate for, but I think the Bengals will be able to replace that much easier. So I think that is a win-win, honestly. I don't think the Bengals would benefit too much from paying Uzama that much money. They brought Coleman back, it looks like, as a backup. And then I like these two signings. At least the Bucs are losing somebody. DJ Reed is going to be an awesome number 2 corner opposite of Hall there. He could maybe play in the slot, but he's gonna play outside corner for them. He'll be comfortable in that system. I think Seattle's defense at the end, or at least last year, it very closely resembles the Jets. It's a lot of cover 3, but it's not so much the press man cover 3 as it is off cover 3. And DJ Reed's very good there. Jordan Whitehead is just kind of a cheaper, a cheaper Marcus May. So if relationships were flaming out there, Jordan Whitehead has that same versatility where he can go high as a free safety, he can come down and play man coverage. Him and Ashton Davis, you could technically do worse than those two at safety. So I like a lot of these moves for the Jets. Looks like they brought LaMarcus Joyner back as well, who really didn't. Was he hurt last year? I don't know, but I don't remember saying his name once last year, but he in theory is a good fit here. Who's a better draft prospect, Sam Howell or Mitch Trubisky? I had second. My grading when I did Trubisky was very dated. I was just getting started. I basically had no idea what I was doing, so I can't say for sure. I do remember saying Trubisky was like a second round guy that I could maybe like take at the end of the first. I did not like Trubisky. I just based on what I remember, I believe in Howell more than I believed in Trubisky. He's played more. Trubisky was a one-year wonder. I thought Trubisky made a lot more boneheaded mistakes. They have some of the same accuracy issues, but it's easy to say Sam Howell is a better prospect with hindsight, but or at least what we know of what happened with Trubisky. But I can't say for sure. That was literally like the first couple months of my channel, and my quarterback takes that year were wild. We've come a long way, chat. We've come a long way. All right. Eagles. Kind of status quo here. Let's see. What have they done? Not a whole lot. Kelsey's back. That's good. Oh, yeah, they signed Reddick. I'm not a fan of this signing. I think if you're the Eagles and you have Brandon Graham coming back, you have Josh Sweat, you have Fletcher Cox, you have Javon Hargrave, you have another young pass rusher coming through the woodworks they drafted last year in oh boy, where are you? Milton Williams. I like Milton Williams. If I'm the Eagles, I would so much rather spend this money, and they didn't have a ton of it, on a corner, on a safety, on a receiver. Like, I just don't think this was a smart use of their resources. He could play solid for them, but you got 3 first-round picks. There's other players that are better than Hassan Reddick that'll probably get less than Hassan Reddick. I don't think he's your franchise edge. So you could go for like a Melvin Ingram or a Jerry Hughes and get comparable production. I would not have made that move. I really don't think it was a good use of money. I don't think he performs to that value. He's not a guy that wins one-on-one situations. Now, as a cleanup man, surrounded by all that talent, he'll probably get 10 sacks again. But what is Reddick going to do that you couldn't get from a lot of other players? I have serious questions about that. They get Herbig back. He could potentially start at guard with Brandon Brooks leaving. Ward's back. Yeah, really all they've done is Reddick, and I don't like it. I would have rather spent that money on Stephon Gilmore. I would have rather spent that money on J.C. Jackson, on one of these safeties, on a receiver. I think there's just so many other spots I would have been targeting, especially because you have those 3 first-round picks. You're not using all those picks to go get Watson. You're kind of out of the picture there. Why? You're going to be able to get a pretty good edge in this class. And now you're kind of taking yourself out of this edge class when that's kind of where the meat is in this draft, is all those first-round picks. I don't think it'd be pretty stupid to pay Reddick and then draft an edge in the first. That's just a little bit overly redundant. So I'm not a fan of that move. Pittsburgh's been very quiet. They obviously they went for Trubisky. All right, self-made man. Thank you for the money, but I'm going to take the high ground here and ban you, because this is just there's no room for this shit in this chat, man. I don't care if you're giving me money. There's no room for that here. But thanks for the $6, asshole. All right. Anyway. Trubisky to the Steelers. I'm glad they didn't pay him a bunch of money. When that first came out, I assumed like there was these reports that he was going to be getting more money than you realized. And I was afraid someone was going to give him, $20 million. And I think it's it's almost like a non-factor. I think you have all this uncertainty at quarterback. And that deal to me doesn't say you're guaranteed to be the starter. That says you got to come in here, you got to earn it. I imagine it's basically a 1-year deal. Let's look at the guarantees. About half guaranteed, so they can probably get rid of him for like $3 million penalty next year. It's not going to work out. I think it's a waste of time. I wouldn't have made the move myself, but it adds another body to the mix. So you have Trubisky, you've got Haskins, who they gave a 1-year, $2.5 million tender to. I think you say goodbye to Rudolph. That's not going anywhere. And I don't think this takes them out of the quarterback market at all. I think if they like Malik Willis or any of these other guys, they're still going to pursue them. And if anything, this actually makes it more sustainable to draft a guy like Willis or Howell or Corral, where you kind of want to draft them and develop them, because you can kind of burn through Trubisky. You can even burn through Haskins and then get to Willis or whoever it is. Now, the more stable route would be to go like Dalton maybe, or even like Mariota, who are a little bit more stable, and you have a better chance of actually being a playoff team there. But maybe the Steelers see a little bit of upside in Trubisky and want to kick the tires, and maybe removed from the Bears, they can figure something out. So it's, maybe there's a 3% chance that you get a Ryan Tannehill situation. Ravens got Morgan Moses, says the chat. Another great signing for the Ravens. They must not like the medical situation on Jawan James that they kind of rolled the dice on, but can't blame them there. Morgan Moses fits that mauling type. He's very similar to Orlando Brown, honestly, and in pretty much every sense of the way. So they get Morgan Moses for 3 years, $15 million. I mean, I'll take Morgan Moses for $5 million over Orlando Brown for 20 any day of the week. Those guys are a lot closer than a lot of people realize. Great move for the Ravens. Love that front office, man. Ravens always one of my favorites. But the Steelers have made some other moves here on the O-line. Wow, they give Mason Cole 3 years, $15 million. You know what? I feel like it's going to work out. Mason Cole played well for the Vikings. He's developed. The Steelers have an eye for this thing, man. I feel like that's going to work out. On paper, I don't love it, but I feel like he's going to start for them and probably be better than he's ever been. And then they got James Daniels for 3 years, $26 million. So that interior offensive line's in really good shape, man. They need tackles, though. That's oh, shit. They gave Chukwuma Okorafor 3 years, $30 million? Yikes. I don't know about that one. Totally missed that. That's so much money for a replacement level tackle. Okay, that one I don't like because he's been here, right? At least like Daniels, you can see he's super athletic. He's young. You put him in with better coaching and he can take off. Same thing with Mason Cole. Like, I get that process. But like, Chooks has been here for 4 years and he's slowly gone from like bad backup to, you know, high-end backup guy you don't want to start. That's just paying a guy because he started a bunch of games. But that's dumb. Like, the Ravens in your division just gave Morgan Moses, who's a much better player, half of that. That one's bad. What else have they done? They also got Levi Wallace for 2 years, $8 million. I mean, seriously, you could flip the Levi Wallace contract and the Chukwuma Okorafor contract, and I would say good job. So Steelers fans, let's just do that. If Levi Wallace got 3 years, $30 million, I would be far from surprised. That's comparable to like what Charvarius Ward got, and I think those guys are both like good number 2 corners. Levi Willis is also a great scheme fit. So let's just picture they gave Levi Wallace 3 years, $30 million instead of 2 years, $8 million. And let's say they gave Chukwuma Okorafor a 2 year, $8 million contract and just say it's a push. We got a super chat from Charlie. What tips do you have for someone trying to get better at scouting and player evaluations? I would definitely suggest, like, you got to dive, like, podcasts have really helped me. I would say all the draft podcasts are great. Like, I got to shout out Trevor and Connor. They just launched the Too High podcast. That's a good one. 2-for-1 drafts. The PFF podcasts, they're good ones. You got to listen to the Athletic Football Show. Those are kind of my big 3 in my rotation right now. There's some good books that you can listen to that are informative. The Score takes care of itself. Bill Walsh. Mike Lombardi's book on the Patriots is a good one. And there's another one I can't think of right now. But anyway, those are a couple good books. And then the other thing I always tell people is you got to get a Game Pass subscription. And when I was starting, I was really just watching broadcast footage, which is not ideal, but I will say you can do the condensed games on Game Pass, and it just helps you consume more. And I suggest pick like some of the more intriguing teams from last year and just watch their full season on condensed version as if you're watching or binging a Netflix season. And you learn a lot while you do that. I learned a ton about different teams. I still try to do that every summer. to just rewatch. Yes, thank you. Bruce Arians' book, The Quarterback Whisperer, is fantastic. That's the other one I was trying to think of. So great question. I get that question a lot. Tough one to answer, but all right, guys, we got 5 teams left. We're doing pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I was dreading this stream a little bit, not because I didn't want to do it, but because I knew it was going to be a freaking trek, and I did not get a lot of sleep last night. But it has been fantastic, and you guys have been amazing. This has been, I think, as someone that evaluates myself, I think this has been one of my higher quality streams that I've done. Minus the intermittent chugging from my Packers cup here. All right. San Francisco. Trying to avoid the Kittle curse. So I was very surprised. The 2 guys I said I would prioritize over everyone here was in my Blueprint series. I said, I don't want to lose DJ Jones, and I don't want to lose Laken Tomlinson. And they lost them both. That is painful for the Niners. I think those are critical players for them that they're going to have to replace. So you hope Kinlaw can come back healthy next year and replace DJ Jones, get better at run defense. You hope Aaron Banks, I guess, can replace Laken Tomlinson. But it's not looking great on those guys being able to do that. They have the potential to, but they really need to hope that happens. And then they shined Charvarius. I like Charvarius Ward. I really do. I've done several. I would just say every time I watch all 22 on the Niners, or on the Chiefs, I walk away impressed by Charvarius Ward. He's a fast, long speed athlete. He's a very physical corner. He can press. He makes plays in zone. Every corner is going to get beat from time to time, and every corner eventually you're probably going to get mossed by Jamar Chase if you follow him around all game. He did not play great against the Bengals in the AFC Championship. Or actually, I think it was the Week 16 game or whatever. But he is a very underrated player. And the reaction when he signed 3 years, $40 million was that like holy overpay reaction. And it's expensive. I mean, would I rather have, we were just talking about the Steelers getting, who was it? The corner, Levi Wallace. I mean, would I rather have Levi Wallace for four per year than Charvarius Ward for 16? Hell yeah. Like, the Steelers got an absolute bargain there, but I don't have a problem paying a number 2 corner good money. It's a little bit expensive, but let's be honest. The Niners cornerback situation is far from ideal. They were really counting on Ambry Thomas playing as a number 2 corner, and I like Ambry Thomas a lot, and I think he could do that. But to count on that when you have Super Bowl aspirations is a risky proposition. And I would imagine that they can, I don't know how much guarantee was in this deal, but I imagine if it doesn't work out, they can get out of it. 26 guaranteed. They're kind of locked in there, but I think he's going to play just fine. So I don't have any issues with that. And sometimes if a guy isn't necessarily interested, you gotta bump up that price tag a little bit. You know, maybe Charvarius Ward was like, look, man, if I'm going to San Francisco where my taxes are about to probably double than what they are in Kansas City, I need a little bit more money. You know, sometimes that behind the scenes stuff doesn't get discussed. They are keeping D Ford, I guess. They converted his contract, so he's going to stick around. All right. He's got to stay healthy. I mean, he's a good player when he's healthy, but that's been the issue with him. That's really all the Niners have done. I don't think it's like an amazing. If I'm a Niners fan, I'm like, I'm a little bit uneasy right now because of the offensive line. Also, they're probably holding out for a Jimmy Garoppolo trade so that they can sign someone else, right? I imagine that, they're going to clear like 25 mil when they trade Jimmy. But right now the Colts are sitting there like, we're holding all the cards, man. You can have a 6th rounder for him. But we know if we don't give you this pick, you're going to release him, and we have a really good chance of signing Jimmy for a lot less. So the Colts kind of hold all the cards. I think the Niners are unfortunately going to get a lot less than myself and everyone thought they would. Seattle Seahawks here doing, oh my God. Woo-wee. That's worthy of a freaking shout out right there. I did not know that happened. Wow. So we said this for the Seahawks, that they have some really kind of glue guys hitting the market, and their free agency, when I did them for the blueprint, was much more about keeping a lot of these players. And honestly, these are the guys I was talking about. I think Rashad Penny is probably the next domino to fall here, but Quandre Diggs, 3 years, 40 mil. He's a guy that's been, I think he made like the NFL top 100. He's gotten a lot of hype, makes a lot of plays. I think he's a good free safety, but a lot of people think he's maybe a little bit better. But 3 years, 40 mil, 13 a year, that's a good price tag for Quandre Diggs. I'll pay him that. I'm fine with that. Especially when you steal Sidney Jones at 3.5. Oh, man. Sidney Jones was really good for them. Now, they did lose DJ Reed. Corner's a big need for them. They don't typically draft corner. That's not been their philosophy. But I will not be surprised if they go like Stingley or Sauce, because they did lose DJ Reed. And they got that number 9 pick. So keep an eye on that. That might change their draft philosophy. I think if they got Sidney Jones and DJ Reed, they wouldn't have to go corner. But I think that it just became much more likely that they do with that 9th pick. And that's kind of where the sweet spot is for Sauce and Stingley. But yeah, Sidney Jones had a great year last year. And he was good the year before that. I thought it was stupid when Urban Meyer let him go. That was one of the many stupid Urban Meyer moves. So he's been good for 2 years. I am surprised a guy that once upon a time, before a brutal workout injury pre-draft, was once upon a time discussed as a top 20 pick. This is not some slouch. He's a lengthy, athletic corner, finally reaching his potential. So I guess there wasn't a market for him, and he's back in Seattle. So that's optimism there for Seattle, where it's been harder to come by. Will Dissly, kind of figured he'd be back. He's just kind of a glue guy, a good number 2 tight end. He's a blocker. He's a good hands guy. 3 years, 24's not ideal, but certainly not backbreaking. And then they got Al Woods, who's a good nose tackle. So they're just kind of going to work. And we don't really know what direction they're going in Seattle, but those are all, in a vacuum, good moves for the Seahawks. Do I have to do this? Are you guys going to put me through this on hour 3 of this stream? Good for you, Tampa Bay. I can't do this. Good for you, assholes. Like, seriously? Seriously? Fuck off, Brady. Good for you, Tampa Bay. Like, obviously, all of those moves are amazing for Tampa Bay. 3 days ago, you didn't have a quarterback. You had negative $3 million in cap space. And all of a sudden, you got the gang back together. Congrats. I can't do it. Go to SportsCenter if you want to hear people talk about Brady. Tennessee, I love that they got Ben Jones back. That was something we talked about. How they were losing him and Saffold. I think I said in the blueprints, I was like, I want to focus on getting one of those guys back, because it's a lot more manageable to replace one good starter than it is 2. So Ben Jones is going to come back in for 2 years. Good run blocker. And you're in good shape at center. You still need to kind of replace Saffold there, but I think that was a good use of their money. The Jamarco Jones signing's interesting. They must see something they like there. I'd be surprised if anything happened from there, but that's not nothing. 2 years, $5 million for a guy that's barely played in the NFL. They bring Jeff Swain back. He played well for them last year. They released Janoris Jenkins. Okay. I didn't know they did that. I mean, that's fine, honestly, because you're hoping Caleb Farley comes back. If that tells me anything, it's that they feel good about Caleb Farley next year. Which is promising. They're the guys that can look at that back and the injury that he suffered last year. Was it an ACL for Farley? I can't remember. But hell, with how well LSU kid, I'm mad at myself. I can't draw this name right now. Christian Fulton. Loved Christian Fulton. Needed a big year too. He had it. He can plug in for Janoris Jenkins. You hope you get Farley back, and your secondary should be just fine. So I guess now that I think that through, that makes sense. And AJ Moore, good special teamer. Bucs fans are mad that I'm not talking about you. I mean, there's nothing to say. You want me to just say all the good things? Like, there's nothing to say. It's fan. If you're a freaking Bucs fan, you're elated. You should not. You weren't even expecting these guys to be back, but because Tom Brady comes out of retirement, they're back and the salary cap doesn't exist. Tom Brady doesn't need a wide receiver 3, but why not give a wide receiver $30 million who's a really productive player and plugs right into the slot where they had an opening? Why not just find $30 million to give to him and steal him from the Atlanta Falcons who don't have a wide receiver? Oh, on top of that, you just ended up on the winning side of the worst trade of the year. So, I mean, what do you want me to say? Good for you. Good for you, Tampa. You're back. Okay, Washington. Last team. They've done nothing. Making it easy. They brought Bobby McCain back. I think they missed out on some of the safeties they wanted. Maybe they were interested in Justin Reed or some of these guys, but McCain didn't really work for them last year, but now with Landon Collins kind of out of the way, McCain in that system for another year, I could see him having a better year at safety. They re-signed Troy Apke, and they re-signed Tyler Larson. That's a sneaky move because they have that hole at right guard. Tyler Larson filled in at center for them really well. That's a really good budget. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Tyler Larson ended up starting at right guard and playing pretty well for them. He was a no-name guy that stepped in and played pretty well. So, quiet little signings. Carson Wentz thing we've talked about. But that is all we got. Wow, what a stream. Man, that was fun. That was a really fun stream. I hope you guys enjoyed. I am out of gas and out of time. We are out of here. We maintained 500 this entire time. Thank you so much. Best fans in the freaking world. The super chats. You guys, your support. I seriously cannot thank you enough. I hope I made it worth it. Thank you for hanging out. And man, just very happy with you guys. Very happy with the stream.